When most of us think of Lucy, we think of the sweet, carefree, and wildly unhinged love interest of Cyberpunk Edgerunners. But have you ever stopped to analyze her motives and what she's done? My goal by the end of this short video is to change your perception of Lucy and make you rethink her role throughout the story. Here are the reasons why Lucy is not who you think. Number 1. Lucy caused MAINE and DORIO'S deaths. After rewatching Edgerunners for like the 57th time, there's one line that really stuck out to me. In episode 9, Kiwi and Faraday have an ominous conversation about Lucy. What Faraday said had me scratching my head long after. Faraday tells us that MAINE and DORIO'S deaths were part of Lucy's plan. Lucy saw them as collateral damage in her scheme to cover up the Arasaka cyberskeleton experiment.
So MAINE and Dorio were mere collateral damage in her scheme.
Sure, in hindsight.
So much carnage for one so petite.
I thought it was strange that Tanaka got fried out of nowhere, and up until a few days ago I thought Tanaka had flicked some kind of life switch on himself to prevent giving out confidential information in case he was captured. My theory made sense to me when we consider that Trauma Team would have been notified by doing this, potentially increasing his chance of survival in a life-threatening situation. It was probably obvious to a lot of people, but it turns out Lucy did this from within the deep dive. For a split second, we see Lucy's eye glow red, signaling to us that she's using some kind of malicious net running skill. Faraday confirmed that Lucy killed Tanaka knowing full well what the risks in doing that would be. I get that Lucy wanted revenge for what Arasaka did to her growing up. They forced her to scavenge the old net against her will, leading her and the other children to their eventual death. With that said, Lucy had to have known that Tanaka had a Platinum Trauma Team policy. She had to have known that offing Tanaka meant putting MAINE and Dorio in grave danger, as they were the two spearheading this operation. Not only this, but when David tells Lucy he's going to help them, Lucy tried to convince David not to help MAINE and Dorito. She mentions that MAINE and Dorio could find a different exit, but it seemed like the only thing that mattered to her was David staying alive. It seemed like Lucy had at some point accepted that MAINE and Dorio were supposed to die because of what she did. Lucy prioritized her personal need for revenge on Arasaka over the lives of her crew. I know Lucy may have improvised since David failed to keep Tanaka sedated while she was in deep dive, but at the very least she put her crew in a great deal of unnecessary danger. Her guilt over causing this could also be part of why Lucy distances herself from the crew later in the show. Lucy purposefully hiding the cyberskeleton plan from David was also pretty sad. She thought that by erasing the files Tanaka had in Deep Dive and flatlining Tanaka, this would make Arasaka somehow forget all about their plan to use David as a guinea pig. I know Lucy hid this from him because she thought David would charge forward head first and possibly become the test subject anyway. Whether or not this is true, we'll never know. Still, she lied to David about Tanaka not having any data, which could have come back to bite the crew if Militech or Faraday found out she lied. Number 2. Lucy sold David out. This one is obvious, but for some reason everyone seems to overlook it. In episode 2, Lucy immediately caught on to the fact that David was rocking the Sandevistan. She quickly devised a plan to keep David with her until her gang had a chance to group up on him. Not only this, but she had David put under a BD to make him an easy target for when they got there. She did mean what she said about never having shown anyone else the BD of the moon, but that doesn't erase the fact that Lucy got David into the brain dance to trap him for when MAINE arrived. To add insult to injury, Lucy literally makes the call to MAINE during her conversation she's still having with David. It's fascinating how pretty much the entire fanbase overlooked Lucy selling David out later on. I can objectively say that Rebecca was honest and forthcoming with David from the start.
Don't you worry, I got your back.
Number 3. Everything was Lucy's fault. There's a theory out there with some decent popularity which states that all the events of Edgerunners and everything David went through can be traced back to something Lucy did in episode 1. David sees the silhouette of Lucy in Corpo Plaza during the first episode, and it's very fair to assume she was stealing chips, as David helps her do this the very next day. We know David's software freaked out during class for an unexplained reason. What if this was because Lucy stole David's chip before he got to class? Who's to say Lucy stealing David's chip wasn't the cause of the malfunction? Right before he gets to Arasaka Academy, we get a quick shot of David directly emphasizing his empty slots, which he scratches at, maybe even signaling to us that something feels missing. Lucy causing the malfunction in David's class meant his mom was called to Arasaka Academy, which then meant she was caught in the crossfire of the gang goons on the way home, which ultimately led to her death. Gloria's death and David's feeling of helplessness are what led to David spiraling into the rage that got him to install the Sandevistan in the first place. It's not too far of a stretch to say that the entirety of the events we see take place throughout Cyberpunk Edgerunners could have all been because of a domino effect set in motion by Lucy all the way back in episode 1. A quick point worth mentioning here is that the more I watch Edgerunners, the more convinced I am that Lucy did in fact return to Earth after the ending. Not only do the signs on the moon that read Moon Tours suggest this, but the voice we hear through the intercom on the moon bus does too. The voice says, "Thank you for joining us on today's tour of the moon. Experience lunar gravity in a way no brain dance can simulate." This language is highly indicative that this is a one-time and passing experience. This means Lucy set out for a two-way trip, not to stay on the moon permanently as I had initially believed. What could she have left to do on Earth to get her to come back? Did she not find what she was looking for on the moon? Or did she discover that her dream wasn't safe from Arasaka after all? Did this video change the way you view Lucy at all? Are there any cyberpunk theories I haven't covered yet on my channel? Make sure to geek out in the comments below and I'll catch you in the next one.